Hi, this is Jackie Sharp from Purrfect Practice. Today's lesson is the third lesson in the series, An Introduction to Piano Technique. In this lesson, I'm going to be talking to you about upwards and downwards movements of the wrist and the effect that these movements have on the sounds we produce at the piano. When we play the piano, there's usually some level of movement of the first joint of the finger, which gets the finger moving to press the key. But for the purpose of this video, just so that you can see everything clearly, I'm going to be avoiding using that joint to initiate movement. So I'm going to keep that joint still and just use the wrist to play, because I'd like you to see some of the amazing things that the wrist is capable of at the piano. Okay, so first of all, let's just put our hands into a C position, preferably not the middle C position, because the middle C position you're blocking yourself a little bit. Go to the higher C position in the right hand. Now we're just going to go into a natural hand position, and we're going to let the wrist drop down and the wrist rise. And the wrist drop down, and rise. This time we're going to let it drop down again, but when we rise, we're going to keep on rising until the fingers just lift off, so that the last finger has just left the key, the middle finger. One more time. So we drop the wrist down, never too low. We never want to be touching the wood on the piano. We want to be coming down just below the white keys, and then releasing and just letting go. Okay, so let's find out some effects of doing that at the piano. First of all, I'll play in a fairly neutral position, and I will not drop my wrist. Well, I'm going to try to do that, and when I try to do that, I actually find that without moving anything else, I can't do it, because I'm not allowed to move my finger joint in this video, so I'm not able to do that. I'm not able to move my wrist, so how am I going to get the note down? The only way I can do that is with the arm, but that's going to be a different lesson. I'm not talking about that today. So I'm going to have to drop my wrist just a little bit, and let's listen to the sound. I'm going to play the second finger, because with the second finger you can see very clearly what I'm doing here. So I'm going to just do a tiny little bit of a drop of the wrist and listen to the sound. Once more. So remember, there's actually no finger involvement. The only involvement of the finger is that its job is to keep the joint stable. Now I'm going to do it with a larger drop of the wrist, and let's see the effect on that sound. Okay, again. So when I dropped the wrist more, I got a deeper tone. I also find that my fingers straighten out a bit, but the joints at all times stay stable. They do not collapse inwards, doing any kind of movements like that. Okay, so one more time, I'm going to drop down and get a nice, deep, rich sound. Now, I'm going to gradually start to raise my wrist as I do the movements. And we're going to listen to the effect on the sound of that. So now I'm going to go back into that more neutral one. Now, listening to that, after the other sound, we find that it sounds quite harsh. Remember this sound? With the dropped wrist, or the lowered wrist, and this one. So as I move my wrist higher and higher, I'm going to find that it sounds harsher, stronger and harsher. Until finally I sort of get all the way to here and listen. It's quite an ugly, harsh sound. And then back to with the dropped wrist. Okay, so we now know that changing the position of the wrist alters the quality of the sound that we produce. All right, now let's see what happens if I want to play a very, very soft note. what I can do is I can have a lower wrist position, and then as the wrist slightly raises, without using the finger on this video, I can just play simply by using the wrist. Watch this. I'm going to lift my wrist. As it does, it lengthens out the finger. If I do it fairly fast, I will get a sound. Again. One more time. Okay, now we're going to apply that to things like slurs, two-note slurs. So in the two-note slur, we have a drop, and then we should just let the wrist play the second note to get it coming up beautifully soft. So again, a drop, and then the finger does nothing, the wrist plays it and releases. So this takes a fair amount of practice to resist the temptation to do this. Okay, even if you lift your wrist, it doesn't help if you played it with your finger. So you simply drop, don't use the finger, release through the wrist. Okay, now another application of the wrist is as we want to make our notes shorter. So watch, when I did that two-note slur, how quickly I move my wrist up is going to define how long I stay on this note. You can actually just play this note and pull along with a slow movement of the wrist. If I want to stay on the note less time, I make my movement quicker and I pull off, which will eventually, if I make it quick enough, become a staccato. And that type of staccato is called a wrist staccato. In order to make it stronger, I lift faster. The faster I lift, the stronger. And the faster and higher I lift away. So let's practice that one more time. So we're going to start with little staccatos, like a mezzo staccato, almost like the end of a slur. And we're going to increase the speed of this. I'm still soft. Now, as I increase the height, sorry, that's what I meant to say earlier, the height, I get a stronger sound. This is why you sometimes see pianists lifting their arms up in the air. It's for a reason, it's not just show. So anyway, these are some of the applications of the wrist in piano playing. The wrist has a wide variety of motion, and there's a lot more to it than simply the upwards-downwards movements, but that's an introduction, and the next video will make one concerning circular movements of the wrist. I hope you enjoyed this. Happy practicing. Bye.